Welcome to Live Courageously podcast show number 12 of 2023. I'm your host, John Duffy, and this is the 28th Live Courageous podcast show since I started it a year ago. Live Courageously has been the conscious theme of my life for the last 3 years since the beginning of the pandemic in 2020. And it's also been an unconscious theme for most of my life. And if you haven't seen the previous 27 podcasts with some of the amazing, courageous friends sharing their powerful stories of overcoming all odds and going on to live powerful lives and making a difference in the world, you can watch them on John Duffy Live Courageously YouTube channel. And I have about another 50 friends planned to be guests on my future shows. So please subscribe to the YouTube channel and keep coming back every week, Sunday at 2 p.m. So why live courageously? Because fear is just a reaction, but courage is a choice. And I suggest that you consciously choose courage and faith over fear every time that you experience fear to get you through life and to deal with whatever life may throw at you in the future. And trust me, it will throw stuff at us that we don't like or want. So choose courage. Today, my guest is Nicholas Cormier III, and Nicholas was born in Galveston, Texas. His father was a military intelligence officer in Vietnam with 30 years of military service, and his mother was a college professor and counselor. Nicholas joined the United States Air Force in 1995 and served as an air traffic controller for 4 years. He served as a member of the Stealth Bomber 509th Bomb Wing during the Serbian Air War. Upon finishing his Air Force hitch, Nicholas married and was soon the father of a beautiful daughter. He studied theater and film at the University of Texas at Arlington, and he obtained an MBA from Texas State University. He created Runner Films, and he worked as an actor, writer, and director for many years. Nicholas left Texas in 2013 to be closer to his daughter, who's now living in California. He worked various day jobs, including bartender, but was eventually hired by a Fortune 500 aerospace manufacturing company where he worked 70 hours a week for nearly 3 years. Nicholas lost that job in 2017 due to illness, and he ended up homeless on the streets of Los Angeles. He is currently service connected and has permanent housing through the Veterans Affairs Supportive Housing Program. Nicholas is writing and acting again. He writes entertaining stories that examine the human condition, drawing upon his military and corporate experience, as well as his surviving life on the streets of Los Angeles. Nicholas now owns Runner Arts, a full-service content creation company. He volunteers for veteran-centric service organizations and is a member of the Skid Row Running Club. He recently ran his first international marathon in India. I'm going to talk to him about that. And he also ran 4 marathons in a year's time, 2 in the last 3 weeks. Wow. Each marathon is dedicated to his fellow veterans, especially those unhoused and struggling with mental illness and or addiction. Nicholas is the homeless liaison on the Community Veterans Engagement Board of the GLA VA in Brentwood, California. His greatest achievement is as a father, and he and his fiance are expecting their second child, a daughter, Rumi, any day. Let's greet and welcome my good friend with his LA hat. All right, Nicholas, LA Dodgers, go brother. How are you doing, man?
I'm good, John. How are you? It's great to see you.
Hey, great to see you, man. I usually ask 2 questions, and I will ask them, but I'm going to ask a third one first, which is, did you run today as well? Because I saw you ran like 11.5 miles yesterday. So I was wondering if you were going to be running while I did this podcast with you.
I did not run today, John. What I did was I biked 13.1 miles, which was cut a little short because I had a speaking engagement.
Oh my God.
But I did get some biking in.
Wow. Well, you know, I'm impressed, man, by all of that. And I'll give you a story later as to why I'm impressed by it. But, you know, having run, and we'll talk about your marathon experience too as we go into the show. Another quick question before we get to my usual 2 questions. Your daughter, you said, your daughter coming is going to be named Rumi. Is that from the Persian poet? Is that why you chose that name?
Exactly. From the Persian poet.
Rumi. Yeah, well, I'm going to put up, if you don't mind, I'm going to put up 2 quotes because when I saw that, it triggered me because And one of them, they're just great quotes. One is, easy, lovely days don't come to you. You should walk to them. That's one quote by him. And another one is, the inspiration you seek is already within you. Be silent and listen. I think those are both beautiful quotes, and it probably will, your daughter's probably going to live up to that beauty, man. So congratulations with that, brother.
Thank you so much, John. I'm super happy. So is my fiance.
I bet, man. I've had the honor to meet her a couple times as well, and so you're a very lucky man. Very lucky man.
Thank you.
So let me ask you, my usual two questions is, how did we meet? Because of all the shows I've done, there's only been one person who I did not know personally before I did the show with them. So my question is, how did me and you meet? That's my first question.
Well, John and I met on set at the Hollywood Post 43, and on our director John Mendoza's film. It was an amazing experience. John lights up the room. So as soon as I saw John, I felt his energy. I was drawn to him. We were in a scene together. So we got to play together. And that's how we met.
That's the three of us in the scene that we did. And we'll come back to that later, because obviously the film is doing good. And yeah, it was great because it was the same thing. I was honored to be invited to act in the thing, and I met you on set, and our scene together was this three veterans arguing about how to save the post from the zombies, and it was a blast, man. I have to say, it was one of the most enjoyable things I've done. We just had such a blast together, where me and you were arguing, especially, and it was just so cool. But I'll share a little bit more about that later as we go along. Tell me, what does live courageously mean to you? That's the second thing that I usually ask.
Yes, I've seen the show and I've heard it answered. First of all, I'm honored to be here. Thank you for having me be a guest, John. The guests that you've already had on the show and are planned on the show, to be in that kind of company is just humbling, and I'm grateful for it. Live courageously to me, you addressed some of it with choosing faith over fear. Tremendous amount of faith. Also pushing through whatever limits in the mind. For me, living courageously is speaking to myself in a courageous way. And then I'm able to act courageously. So more and more, it's about removing those limits in how I speak to myself, and how I behave, and the actions I take, and having integrity with my word. And when I do those things, I'm able to live and act courageously. And also, I'm leaving out being honest. The more honest I am to myself, the more honest I'm able to behave and act in the outside world. And then I'm able to live courageously.
Well, you've had, maybe you could tell the audience a little bit your life. Like you grew up in Galveston, Texas. I've been down to Texas multiple times on projects, and I've loved the area and the people I met down there. But then you went into the military, coming from a father who was in the military, was an air traffic controller, served in the Serbian War, and then eventually went to college, got degrees, all this stuff. So, a lot of your early life was one of, I would say, success and accomplishment and discipline and, doing stuff like that. So tell us about that. But then you eventually, and I talked about that life will throw things at us, and life threw some stuff at you. So we'll get to that period when you got hit with what life threw at you. But first, tell us about the early part of your life.
Well, the early part of my life was informed greatly by the military. My father's a military veteran. You mentioned it, a military intelligence officer, which for a lot of, pretty much my dad was a spy for 30 years working, working in counterintelligence. And my mother was raising my brothers and I. I was born in Galveston, but that was only because my mother was on the way to meet my dad in Berlin, but she was too pregnant to fly. I had a twin brother. He's no longer with us, but she was pregnant with us, too pregnant to fly. She stopped and had us in Galveston at her sister's, and then we were able to go to meet my dad in Berlin. So my early years were in Berlin.
Wow.
And then I don't remember as much of it as I would like to, but we had, our house was like a shrine to that time in our lives. My mother loved Berlin, and my family really thrived. And my dad loved being on an assignment, and he loved serving in the military. So service was implanted in me by watching dad and how dad conducted himself in the world. And my mother also, who was an educator and very active and involved in the church as well. And those were really the guiding forces in my life at a young age. And they had a lot of expectations for us.
Well, and you've seen from the show, I mean, being courageous can mean a lot of different things, but, part of it is living a life that you don't focus on yourself, but you also focus on service to others. And, what you're saying is that obviously you had role models. Both your parents gave you that model of service, and you continued that model when you joined the military as well, was that model of service, and continue it today with the stuff you're doing today. But, I think that's a model, if you just speak to that for a minute, but I think people need to hear that as much as possible, that, when you are willing to do service to others, your life becomes better. It's the way to live life, rather than being selfish and live a life only focused on yourself. But, talk to that from your experience.
Absolutely. And I tell you, that's a challenge, and it's a lot more challenging than it may seem, because it's like early on, I got that, right? But as life gets bigger, the demands of life, I start to get married, I start to go through things, I'm achieving things, I'm being tested on multiple levels, and more it's starting to become about me, right? I'm not seeing that the same way. And I'm grateful for that narrowing view, because it's what allowed me to see it and live it in a different way. I was doing what I was taught before. Now I'm living it because I know it works. I know it's the key. To me, that's the sauce, is being of service to other people. When my mind is less on myself, when my mind is on others, I'm freer, and I'm freer to act and be that person that I really intend to be and want to be in the world. And that's why I keep doing it. Gratitude too. I find that being grateful for my life and loving my life is really what allows me to be grateful for my life and love my life. So
it's that complicated and that simple, right?
yes.
Exactly, man. It's just, sometimes we make life so much more complicated, but when you simplify it, that's what it is. If you do that, you get the benefit of it, as well as the people in your life as well.
Yes. And I think it's also growing up and maturing and seeing that, it's that whole adage of putting the oxygen mask on first. It's that whole, because, I think I can also get busy trying to do all these things in the outside world, and I'm forgetting to take care of myself. And being a parent and going through some of the things that I've experienced in life, I've realized that in order to be the person I intend to be out there, as a father, as a husband, as a partner, all of those things, I have to take care of myself and love myself in the way, and serve myself the way I'd like to serve others first, in order to be able to transmit that outwardly to the world. And that took some time to learn.
I bet. And let me ask you, you spent 4 years as in the military, not all as a air traffic controller, but over in Serbia as well. And then you come back and you choose, at some point, you make a choice to pursue a creative path, a writer, an actor, a director, as opposed to maybe a different path. What was that? Why did you pivot in that direction? Why were you attracted to being a creative person in those areas? And what got you down that path?
Well, you know what? I think early on as a child, that always resonated with me. I just want to say, just to be honest, I didn't actually go to Serbia. I'm a stealth bomber, so if you familiar with that aircraft, it never lands. So
right.
You're really in one location while
controlling the stealth bomber. Gotcha.
Right. But we were utilizing it in the war.
In Serbia. Got it. Yes, understood.
Yes.
My bad. Understood.
No, I just wanted to say that because I just didn't, just
100%.
I wasn't boots on the ground in Serbia.
Sure.
Utilizing the aircraft there.
But you are playing a vital role by doing that, obviously. And that's the thing sometimes people don't realize. It takes a whole team of people doing all kinds of things to be able to accomplish those missions. It's not everybody has their role. And being an air traffic controller for the stealth bomber was a very valuable role as well.
Absolutely, more so than I'm realizing that more and more as time goes on. I think what we were talking about earlier, I think when you have this sacrifice and selflessness ingrained in you at a young age, sometimes I can gloss over what that really was and not say, oh, okay, that was substantial, that was significant. And I've learned in my process, in my journey, to acknowledge those things. And now with that acknowledgement has come a great deal of healing and a lot of gratitude for having been able to participate in Operation Noble Amble. But
so take us back to the creative side. How did you pivot to the creative, and why? What was that? And you said you were young.
It came to me as a kid. I was always into literature, into reading, into writing, in school. It was just something that resonated with me. And then in high school, I was a jock, but I was also low key in AP classes, in literature classes, and in the arts. I would always kind of sneak over to the theater and stand next to. I was in Texas, so
yeah.
But I was being called to it then. And then when I was in the military, something very clearly started to come forward and be like, wait, you really love to write. You're going to write. And I started to have, and that was my choice, which was one of the reasons why I separated, was because I was called very strongly into the arts. And I knew that that's what I was supposed to be doing. And I knew I had to somehow get busy doing it. So
when you came out of the military, you went to school in Texas, correct? And that's when you started to pursue the arts a little bit more.
I did. Actively. Yes, I immediately utilized my GI Bill and I went to a Collin College, which is now a 4-year college, but it happened to be one of the best theater schools. Some might say the best theater school in the nation at the time. And I don't know, just proximity. I just happened to land there. I didn't know that, but I kept being drawn to the theater, and I'd find myself just standing there. And someone grabbed me, Gail Cronauer, who did so much service and so much work at Collin College, grabbed me and she said, well, you're going to be in my, I said, I don't know why I'm here, but I keep coming here. And she says, you're going to be in my acting 2 class. And then I said, okay. And then she says, okay, sit here and do this. And she told me everything to do. And then she says, she had an agent. So she says, I'm taking you all to see my agent. And then we read for agents and I got signed right then. So from that acting 2 class, I got signed and I started working right away as an actor. And the writing took off at the same time. I got a scholarship as a writer back then too. So I was off to the races with that for a while.
And at some point, was that the reason, or was there? Oh, you meant I read the reason. So you moved to California to be closer to your daughter, but that also obviously put you, into at least what is mostly the heart of the entertainment industry as well. But why you came for one reason, but you got the other reason. But take us on that journey.
Wow, what a journey! After Collin College, I went and got my bachelor's and a minor in theater, in film and everything. And then I got an MBA. That was kind of like, I did that because I thought my parents were going to be like, what's with all this art stuff? How are you going to take care of it? So I went and got an MBA.
Because they weren't going to be impressed by you being an actor.
They were like,
yeah, no.
We're really proud of you. That's really good. But what are you really going to be doing? How are you doing?
Exactly.
So I went and I did that. And it was, and I was thinking, I had 2 agents at the time. I had an agent in Dallas and an agent in Austin. I'm booking stuff and I'm traveling and I'm trying to work 2 cities at the same time, but I'm also getting a master's. And I realized the workload of a master's and trying to do that was it didn't quite work out the way I thought it was. I was like, wait a minute,
a lot of work.
A lot of work. You can't make C's, So I had to devote myself to the graduate degree and get out of there. And in the midst of that, right as soon as I was about to graduate in December, my ex-wife told me she was moving my daughter to Los Angeles.
Ah,
and I had a choice to make. And at first it was like, okay, I'm going to stick around in Austin, because this was before everybody moved to Austin. Austin was a great place to be back then.
sure.
So I'm like, man, leaving Austin to go to LA. But I went to visit my daughter in March of that year. They moved in December. I went to visit my daughter in March, and keep in mind, my daughter's really, really young at this time. She's 18
Right.
now. She was really young in 2013. So I when I went to the airport to leave her, she broke down crying and she was sobbing, and I knew right then and there, I'm coming to be with my little girl. And I dropped everything, John. I left my job. I loaded up the car. I had a Nissan Sentra. I had a
Got that. I know what that is.
you know that car? That was my car, Nissan Sentra. I put a TV in the back. I put some clothes in the back. And I had $2,000 saved up, and I got a 20-hour-a-week job at the Embassy Suites in Valencia, which was and that's what brought me to California. I came with that. And the air traffic controller, the guy who trained me in air traffic control way back when, was working at LAX, the Tracon at LAX for air traffic control, but that's in Palmdale. So
Right.
he gave me a room. He says, you come with me. You want to be near your daughter. When you have enough money, you can pay me rent, but you can live with me. So my mentor, the guy who trained me in air traffic control, gave me a room so I could come out here. So I can't say enough about that stuff, but that's how I got my start out here.
Well, just hearing you explain that, I just think that, it reflect two things to me. Hearing it is, one, your character as a dad, that, at that point, you made a decision that wasn't about you, but it was about your daughter. And that took, your character, reflected on who you are, and also reflected on your courage, because you had to put yourself outside of your comfort zone into a new situation to survive. And you did it for a bigger reason. I just respect that, man. So you get out here, and then you're obviously working, and then you go down, eventually working for a corporation, and you start doing that, and everything's good, and life is great financially, I would imagine, and then until it's not. And then you hit the wall in 2017. Is that correct? And you lose that job. And now you get hit with some real challenges, even
real
beyond
challenges,
right?
And just to give a little insight on that, I took that job, but when I moved here, and this was one thing that I see, I did have a limitation. When I moved here, I wasn't thinking of the entertainment industry. I was thinking in what I love to do in the arts. I was thinking of that sacrifice and that selflessness. I'm going here to take care of my daughter and be with my daughter.
Right.
And next thing you know, things started to change, because I'm an artist, and that's what I do more than anything is do the arts. So being away from the arts and not being able to fulfill that side of myself and that obligation to myself led to some troubles. Not only that, in 2017, while I'm working that job, my daughter moves away to North Carolina. And that was really tough. That was really tough.
Wow. And then at some point, you become homeless. And
Yes.
that's going to connect to what you do later. And I'm going to play a little video about one of the things that you work with. But what was that like? I mean, I don't know. Some people have experienced it. A lot of people haven't. I mean, what was that like? You're here, things are going good, and then they're not, and now you're struggling. Tell us a little bit about that period of time and what it was like for you, man. If you want to go there, I know.
No. Hey, John, look, it's you, John. I'm not telling John what went on. You know what I'm saying? And this is called Live Courageously, and it's a big part of what informs me of who I am now. It informs who I am today. I'm grateful for that experience now. It introduced me to Los Angeles in a new way. I'm sorry. I hope the sound is not bothering you all too much. I'm not sure what that is, but I'll try to address it. But
no, if it's vague in the background, it's fine. Keep going.
Perfect,
You got it.
Perfect. But here's what happened. I'm not able to pay rent, right? I start to try to address this. I'm starting to realize, wait, I'm working 70 hours a week. I do the payroll. It's aerospace manufacturing. Aerospace manufacturing is one of the most grueling things that anybody can do. I have so much respect for people who are in that industry. But we were about 300 or 600 late lines behind, and we were on a full fledged effort to recover a plant. And a Marine came to me. So the whole reason I take this job is because a Marine comes to me and says, hey, man, I need help trying to recover. so the plant manager is a Marine, and I'm thinking I'm Air Force, right? So I said, okay, you know. I'm not gonna tell a Marine no. This Marine wants me to come and help him. So
that's funny. That's funny.
So but I don't realize, wait a minute, this is something that just can't fully be recovered in the time frame that we were given. And it takes a lot out of all of us. And in the meantime, my daughter leaves, which was my reason really for coming to California. I don't know how to handle any of these emotions. So when she left, I remember taking her to her mother and her stepfather and dropping her off. And I'm telling you, the joy of having been able to be there at lunch, take her to lunch, eat lunch with her in elementary school. She was in elementary. She was going into middle school when this move happened. She's around 13 years old. And I thought, I just said, you know what, like we learned to do in the military, I'm just gonna grin. I'm just gonna move through this. I'm a soldier on and keep going. And that's what I did for a while. And then the work hours, all of it, not knowing, not going to get therapy or anything to help deal with my daughter moving or knowing how to get out of that situation. Slowly, my health starts to suffer. And next thing you know, I find myself hospitalized and out of a job. And wow. And then I find this notice on the door. It was funny when the notice came. The notice says, the notice said, it keeps saying you're going to be evicted. But this was before COVID protocols when you couldn't evict. This was old Los Angeles where
right.
If you don't pay, you're on the street. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. So I was like, okay, all right. Next thing you know, 2 cops showed up to the door. They said, you have 10 minutes to pack your things.
Wow.
And be out of here. So I said, I grabbed 2 bags, the best I could, and I left that apartment. And it was in Toluca Lake, which was a nice luxury apartment, nice apartment.
Yeah, nice area.
Yeah, and I walk out, John, and I'm like, man, I remember holding those 2 bags, and realizing real fast that was too much. I was carrying too much weight. So I figure out that first night was tough. I went up and I sat. It's weird. Toluca Lake's not, for those who may not know where Toluca Lake is, it's not too far from Warner Brothers. It's in walking distance from Warner Brothers Studios. So I go up that day and I walk to Warner Brothers and I sit out in front of Warner Brothers Studios and I think about what I love to do, what I've always wanted to do, and where my life is now. And I don't know. I think it's where you say from faith. Faith over fear. I think I just always knew that wasn't it. And I knew my training. Now I was in the Air Force, so I can't say I knew how to sleep in the field very well. So I had been to combat skills school for a week and had to sleep. So I had to draw on all
conditions
of that.
a little better for the Air Force. Yes, indeed.
Air Force came back to bite me a little bit, but I learned a lot those days. I would try to find a place to sleep. It was tough. The cool part about Toluca Lake is they have stone benches that you can fit. You can lay across. You can fit. They don't have the lip. For those who know bus stops and stuff, most bus stops have a lip, so you can't. There's so many homeless people in Los Angeles. They have lips, so you can't sleep at a bus stop. And I understand the buses have to keep running. But in Toluca Lake, they have benches for bus stops, and you can sleep on those. So I started there. I went to Salvation Army, got some blankets, got a can opener, P38 can opener, And there's so many different people that help you out when you're on the streets of Los Angeles to kind of teach you what you need to do, where to go get a hot shower, where to get a library card, to look for a job, all of those things. So the community around me started to teach me how to deal with this situation that I was in.
And how long did you stay out there, and what did you get into a program that took you to the next level? What was it for you? What was your experience with that?
Well, well, I got tired of Burbank because it's hot out there. And I said, you know what, if I'm going to be homeless, like everybody does out here, right? If I'm going to be homeless, I might as well be homeless near the beach. So I got on a bus and I went to Santa Monica.
My neighborhood, Santa Monica, yeah.
I went to Santa Monica and I said, man, and I slept in that park right there on Ocean Avenue. I forget the name of it, but I would sleep in that park. I'd go to the OPCC. I'd get registered with everything.
Right on Cloverfield, right? OPCC?
Yes,
yeah?
Yes.
It's walking distance from me,
Yes, there's also, yes, there's that there. And then there's that one off of Olympic too, where
Correct.
you get your showers and your meals and everything too. So I started there. Yeah, and as far as the program goes, no, I'm sitting there. This is way back when I didn't run marathons back then. I started smoking again. I was stressed, so I'd go get cigarette butts at the hotels and stuff like that. And I was walking in an alley, and I got into in a Mercedes. Dodgers lost game 7. You Darvish, I don't know what happened to you Darvish. But we lose game 7. I'm like beside myself. All the military stuff is coming up, and I'm starting to feel hyper vigilant. I'm starting to feel a lot of that stuff, and I got into it with a guy driving a Mercedes, and I end up getting picked up and taken to the Twin Towers Correctional Facility. Oh, thank you, Jenny. Thank you. But I get picked up. I go to Twin Towers, and that's where my journey begins. Thankfully, the Veteran Justice Outreach went into the Twin Towers and goes into the Twin Towers. And a lot of veterans may not know this, but the Veterans Justice Outreach are literally angels that have been going in to the jails all over to check on us, particularly here in Los Angeles. So it was the Veterans Justice Outreach that said, hey, we have a collaborative court. It was in Compton. They said, if you can get to us, there's benefits. There's this place in West LA. There's everything. We can get you out there, and we can make sure you have your benefits. We can make sure you get housing. We can take care of you, but you have to get to us. So that was like Shangri-La to me. I was like, okay. I didn't even know about the West LA VA. I knew about the federal building, but not the West LA VA. So that's where somehow at the 11th hour, they told me too. They said, well, you are going to prison, So
Wow.
That's what I was told that right away. They said, you're going to go to prison. Most people go to prison. And I was like, with these charges. And that's a whole nother podcast. But long story short, the Veterans Justice Outreach was prepared for that and knew that and said, we can get you to Compton's collaborative court. My public defender, my dad had hired a lawyer and all of that, but they were drawing this thing out. And I wanted to see my daughter again. So we fired that lawyer, got a public defender. And I just asked that public defender. And that's sometimes, living courageously, John, is asking for help too, and I find
100%.
that was one of the great lessons I learned throughout this whole thing. I mean, I was homeless on the streets. Full disclosure, I could have called my parents right away and I could have been evacuated out of Los Angeles. And I just didn't have that in me. I just felt like I had to stay here and I had to make it. And so of course my parents are there. My dad's there. He's supporting me 100%. He shows up to every court appearance. He's there. Eventually I get at the 11th hour, you're not going to prison. You're going to the Compton Collaborative Court. Judge Atchison Goff runs that court. And that's it. And then they sent me to the domiciliary on the West LA VA campus. I stayed there for maybe 8 months. I'm homeless. So I got to figure that part out. I go to building 257, the Welcome Center. I stay there for another 8 or 9 months. And then I get housing out in the Valley. And and then the pandemic happens. so and that's when I started to do the podcast with Gail Ochiltree, who's also a veteran and a member of the Hollywood Post 43, and we did the Voice of the Veteran during the podcast.
So yeah, you talked to me a little bit about that. So obviously, during the pandemic, you started this podcast show called Voice of the Veteran, and you did it for about a year. And it was something to give back and to do something to help others, but it also helps you, just like, doing this podcast show. It's a way to give back, but it's also something that, gives me strength as well. So what was that like for you, stepping up and doing that podcast show over the pandemic and reaching out to veterans and, being a voice there for them and with them?
Well, the veterans outreach was something that was just, I remember the wellness center gave me a Huffy bike. They just won Christmas. It's those little moments. I'm telling you, when I was in the Twin Towers, one guy gave me a sandwich. I'll never forget that sandwich. I was hungry. And so to that kindness, I will never forget. It gets me emotional because that kindness exists in there. The same was with this bike. Someone donated maybe 100 bikes at the wellness center across from the domiciliary, and I got that bike. With that bike, I was able to go to building 500. For those who don't know, that's the main building for the hospital and things like that. I was able to go to my appointments. On the way, someone pulled me over and said, "Hey, there's a community veterans engagement board meeting." That was Gail Ochiltree. She says, "Come to me with this meeting." She just grabbed me and pulled me into this meeting. Well, I didn't know the director of the VA is in there and everybody's in there. And I'm like, whoa. And I sit on that board today. It's, it's 2023. I'm a member of that board. I'm the homeless liaison on that board today. But that started with people just seeing me on campus and pulling me into things, and my willingness to go and not ever think about being uncomfortable or anything like that, but just to go is what started the veteran outreach and doing some of the things you just mentioned.
Well, listening to your story, I mean, I think a couple things come up to me because, we'll get a little bit more into when we met again before we finish. But when I met you, I met you as a actor and a veteran, right? And then you shared about your running and marathon stuff, and you shared a little bit about your life with me about, coming from Texas, and we got into it. We clicked because I loved your energy, I loved your smile. Just you came across just with that energy that was attractive, and I said, yeah, this is a great guy. So we got that connection. But I didn't know at that time, the journey, and nobody knows each other's journey unless we get into it deeper, right? So I didn't know that you went through all that. I was like, yeah, he's a veteran. This guy seems like he got his act together on every level. But you didn't know that, that people go through stuff like being homeless. People go through, setbacks in life, and we're all human. We all, and sometimes we have things that push us back, and then we have to overcome, and you did overcome them. But I think listening to you is just a reminder to me and to the audience too, that when we see somebody, we don't know what that person's story is, the good, bad, and the bad. We just don't know. And so having that compassion, having that, like you said, somebody gave you a sandwich, someone just realizing that this is another human, that maybe you can be that person to give them something to help them, whether it's a kind word, a smile, a sandwich, whatever, because we're all going through a journey in life, and, and we don't always get to do it by ourselves. We need help. And sometimes we're strong enough to ask for it, and sometimes we're not.
Right. Yes.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
So that's what I hear in your story. And I just think, thanks for sharing all that, because it just gives us, an insight, I think, to people who don't realize, well, this guy really, he was homeless. That's impossible. Right. Well, that's the thing. I think, understand that we're all human. And so anyway, thanks for sharing all that with us.
Thank you, John. Thank you.
I'm just going to put up a quote from somebody, it's just one of the
Thank you, William. Thank you.
Yeah. But, so once again, now, we're going to jump a little bit forward. You did the podcast show, you did that for veterans, and then you got into running, and, so you did that during the pandemic. And before we start with you running, I'm going to, share a little story, and I'm going like, I'm impressed, man. 4 marathons, and during COVID, all the gyms shut down. So what I did was I went out and started walking in the local park in Santa Monica, and I don't like walking. Quite frankly, I like lifting weights. I like playing basketball. I don't like walking. I don't like running. Just, but finally I got up to 15 miles in one day, 4.5 hours of walking. And I felt like I was Forrest Gump. I was like looking for the people behind me. I was like, damn it, and I was just tired. I didn't want to walk anymore. Luckily, the gyms opened up the next week and I went back to the gym. But, to run a marathon to me is impressive. And to run 4 is even more impressive. But how did you get into that? And how did you, what led you to Skid Row Running Club? And then I'm going to share a little video of theirs. And then we'll talk a little bit about your journey as well with that.
Thank you. Well, you know what? Being homeless, you walk a lot too. So
True that.
I think I was up to like maybe 29 miles a day.
When I was at 15, I was saying, you could do 26. And the other part of my brain was, shut up. No, you can't.
Well, we started this thing walking. So that's one of the things I noticed being out there was something primal after a while that just takes over and you just keep pushing forward. And it informs my life today. So I'm so grateful because it was my first connection to that thing within my human spirit that can continue to drive forward. I don't want to say my first because the military taps into that too, but even more so being homeless, and that thing was tapped into. And through the service you mentioned with the Voice of the Veteran podcast, and having come from a situation of having experienced being unhoused, I was tasked by some of my friends in the industry. And they said, hey, we're interested in this. We just want to know what we can do. What can we do? And I was doing the podcast, and I was like, man, I need to get out there. What more can I do? And at the time at the West LA VA, we had a lot of tents and things around the VA and things like that. And I was also working out there and bringing things to them and helping with that situation too in any way I could by being a liaison and also volunteering. And the running just kind of Skid Row happened because I was dating someone who ran and was a marathon runner. And and she encouraged me. She said, you know what? Running really does something for me. And I said, okay. And I was like you, John. I was like, I was not having it, So she was like, I really want you to run. I really want you to run. I said, nah, I don't think so. So I would support her. I went to watch her run marathons. I support her. I'd give her roses when she crossed the finish line, all of that. And then finally, I started looking around. I was like, wait a second. I was like, maybe there's something to this running thing, because I went and I ran Kenneth Hahn, a big hill there, and something kicked in, and I thought, I might try this. So I'd say the mental note was planted in that relationship. And sure. Then the new year was coming around, and I wasn't going to make resolutions or anything. I do a goal sheet. I had goals.
What year was that, Nicholas?
When I started running, 2021.
2021. Okay.
In 2021, I haven't really run. I think I ran one race. I agreed to run one race, which is also an awesome race. It's out in San Pedro. Okay. And it's around September. So I had run that one 5K or 6K race, and that was it. Conquer the Bridge. So I had run that. That's the one race I had run. And then I was looking for a place in a community to run with, and I didn't know. So, a big part of my story is I meditate, and so I was meditating on it. Where do I go? Where do I find a place to run? And I remember that ex-girlfriend had told me about a judge. She had told me about Skid Row Running Club. She told me about a movie. There's a movie, Skid Row Marathon, that really covers what Judge Craig Mitchell does for Skid Row Running Club. And as I've told you, part of my story, it happens to align with my experiences. I didn't know that fully at the time because I hadn't seen the movie fully. I still haven't seen the movie fully because I was like, you know what? It's like I see him when I run with him. So I didn't want it to cloud the way I see him or interact with him fully. But I have watched most of it. And And this was after maybe 6 months of knowing him. But I just started showing up, 6th and San Pedro, for anyone who's ever been unhoused. And for those outside of Los Angeles, 6th and San Pedro is really, for many of us, the epicenter of Los Angeles. It's the epicenter of the homeless epidemic in Los Angeles. It is Skid Row. So being down there, and it's also the Midnight Mission is right there in front of it. And the Midnight Mission has been a great beacon of light in Los Angeles for a long, long time.
I'm gonna play that video, the trailer for the Skid Row Running Club in a second. But about a month ago, I interviewed. He was the only person I had never known on my show, and you probably ran into him in Skid Row, Officer Dion Joseph.
I have, yes.
And Officer Joseph, has worked in Skid Row for 25 years. And, I saw videos with him. I saw interviews with him. And I was like, God, I got to have this guy on my show. He's just one of the most amazing persons who gives of his heart to everybody, knows everybody on Skid Row, just as a role model for making life better for people. So I was honored to have him on my show. We had a great interview. And then turns out his wife has a food truck, and they were going to be in Venice. So the next week I went down to Venice to get their food, try their food, and meet them in person. So it was a great experience for me. The guy's amazing. But let me show this trailer. Let me show this trailer for the Skid Row Running Club. Let's see where it is. Where did it go? There we go.
My involvement with the running club gives me the ability to impact lives in a way that I cannot as a judge.
I came all the way right here. I just dropped my window. I started shooting at them. And when they both fell, I knew I'd hit them.
This is what I used to call home. Climbing in and out of a hole on a regular basis like it's perfectly normal.
I got arrested. I got out of jail. And then I just drank as much as I could, hoping to die.
I was in the streets, not being able to take care of myself.
I have created so much wreckage because of my drinking and, drug use.
I knew that I needed help.
One horrendous act does not define a person in his or her entirety. I started out with just a few runners. They learned very quickly that you do not run a full marathon without a lot of training. Not everybody succeeds.
I knew I had found another passion, and that was running.
Get ready to rock and roll. Here we come, the Midnight Runners.
Maybe the running club, it's a way for him to do something good.
Do I believe in a second chance? Sure I do. Giving someone from Skid Row an opportunity to come to a glorious city is incredibly empowering. It gives them dignity.
This is my letter of recommendation from Judge Craig Mitchell. I'm a decent human being. That's crazy.
They deserve to go.
It all boils down to this moment.
It's such a big deal being here. It's not just about homeless people running in Rome.
This is all like a turnaround for me in my life.
Running gives me a sense of discipline and commitment. It's part of my life.
Whatever sacrifices I have made to make this possible, it's worth it.
So, pretty wild, man.
Oh yeah. And that's the guy I know. I've been fortunate enough to spend a lot of time with Judge Mitchell. We went to the Grand Canyon. I'd never seen the Grand Canyon. I hiked the Grand Canyon with Judge Mitchell. Not only did I run the first LA Marathon in 2021 with Judge Mitchell, but then in April or May of that year, we go to the Grand Canyon, and I had the pleasure of hiking the Grand Canyon with Judge Mitchell. That's a 17-mile hike. I mean, that's not. We hiked it, and then we hopped on our bikes and we rode our bikes back to Los Angeles. And I learned a lot about him on that journey. and who he is and what it's about and what he does. Two of the guys we just saw in that trailer, I know. I just came back from India and the Maldives with one of them, Raphael.
You stop there. You say that so easy. You just came back from running a marathon in India.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty amazing, man. What an experience. What was that like? I mean, I've never been to India, but you didn't just go as a visitor. You went and you ran a marathon in India. I mean, what was the experience like for you to be in a country running that marathon outside of the U.S.?
It was a tremendous experience. I mean, as soon as we touched down, and we didn't have a lot of time, so we knew we ran the marathon. We left on the 22nd. This is the longest flight I'd ever been on, because it's like 25 hours in all, to get there. So it's a whole travel day. We get there, we've got about a day's rest or so, and then we run the marathon right after that. And New Delhi has the greatest pollution I've ever seen. I've never seen any kind of pollution or breathed any kind of air. So automatically your body has to adapt to the fact that the pollution is pretty high. So it was extraordinary. The haze of the pollution, the Indian people, the everything about it, the food, the smells, everything about it made it just this tremendous experience. I am a writer and I can't write this stuff, John. I mean, I can't, it was a true testament to everybody finished too that ran the marathon. It was amazing.
And then you came back, and how long were you here before you ran the LA marathon just recently?
Well, the judge is a very intelligent man. So the judge said, guys, we're going to go to India. We're going to run the marathon. Then we're going to go to the Maldives for 6 days. And the judge had me at the Maldives. I was like, I want to go to the Maldives. So we knew as soon as we got back from the Maldives, we'd had maybe a week or 9 days to run the LA marathon.
Train and run another marathon.
Right. I think I ran one Saturday before the marathon. I think we had one Saturday that we ran before the marathon. So it was interesting.
Yeah, I would imagine it was, man. I'm just gonna, throw up a couple of pictures, obviously, of you. There you are running.
That was in the Maldives. Was that in the Maldives? We ran every day out there in the Maldives. Yeah.
And then, of course, this is you completing the LA marathon.
Yes.
And then getting some carbs in your system, man.
That's in India. That's India.
Oh, that was in India, really?
Yes, this is in India. After the marathon, the Indian people were kind enough to feed us. So we had all this food after the marathon. It was amazing. We were treated very well out there.
And this is, of course, the LA marathon, which you
no, that's New Delhi.
Oh, that's New Delhi. Oh, my bad. Oh, interesting. I didn't know that. So that was in New Delhi. Wow, man.
Yes.
That is so freaking cool. Well, let me just play a quick video for everybody of you. And that was that LA.
That's Los Angeles. That's
Los Angeles. Yeah.
That's Skid Row. Yeah.
So all this stuff, and we met last week, and once again when we started talking about, so you've done all this, these things with Skid Row. It's an amazing organization. It's a way to kind of inspire people to take a second chance at their life, to have a second chance, to encourage people that people can turn their lives around. Not everybody does, and unfortunately, some people don't get a chance or they don't do it. But when people give them a chance, and just like the Skid Row Running Club, it's giving people a chance to find something else, another purpose and a mission. And I guess that's another question before I jump into our work together. But what is those qualities that you say? Because in the military you have a purpose and mission. A lot of times people who come out of the military kind of get lost because they don't have a purpose and mission anymore. And in civilian life, a lot of civilians never find a real purpose and mission to inspire them to have so that's why people sometimes go into a really dark place or a life that is not that good. But if you have a purpose and a mission, something bigger than yourself, whether it's service, volunteerism, fitness, whatever, it inspires you to a better life. So what is that purpose and mission that you share in your life for people that, I think people need to learn from and have?
For me, it's it's like we say, it's complicated and simple at the same time. Of course, I wanna help third world countries, and I want to do all of that, but I draw from my own life for that. Like, I've experienced being unhoused, so for me, I want to help the unhoused. I just draw that line to that. I've experienced being held underneath the weight of the criminal justice system. I want to help people who are in that situation. So I think the things I go through uniquely prepare me to be of service in the areas and the greatest challenges that I've overcome. Now it's this is operating without my hands are off the wheel here. You know what I mean? I'm living it and loving my life, and I'm trying to make it as less about me as I possibly can. That's even with my fiance and my daughters, of being of service to them.
Well, I'm going to just pivot again, but like I said, getting us back, we had a chance to meet, and I always say God's had a bigger plan for me. I mean, I grew up in the ghetto of the South Bronx, dropped out of high school when I was 15, went on a journey that eventually got me to where I am today. I was a counselor with runaway kids in Hollywood. I've done a lot of different things, and you're right. Sometimes, I got involved in veteran support because I ended up doing some training videos with the Marine Corps, and it just opened up a window, and I was like, wow, these are amazing young men and women. What can I do to give back? And that led me into doing veteran support stuff. It wasn't part of a plan. It wasn't what I was thinking about, but a door opens, and I kind of tend to go through the doors when they open and then recreate myself and do something that's useful. So that's kind of how I connected, and that's why we're connected, because I ended up being a member as a son of the Legion over at Post 43, American Legion in Hollywood. Yes. And, we then both ended up on a film together, which is, like you said, this is Hollywood Post 43 Last Stand. And, it was a great experience. They had a screening over at the thing that we obviously had a chance to on the step and repeat red carpet together, and the story was really cool because here's the three of us, we're arguing, we're three veterans, we're arguing about which branch got the better idea to stop the zombies, right? I was playing a Coast Guard veteran, you were Navy, and the other, what's his name? Fred, that's right. Was he Army or Air Force?
I think Fred, I think he might have been Army, but you're leaving out something, John.
Okay,
John,
go ahead, go there.
We were just arguing about that. We were arguing over the ship. I don't know if you saw the picture, but there was that big ship there. John wanted the big ship. John kept saying, well, I'm taking a big ship. I was like, wait a minute. No. And then he tried to give me this little bitty ship. I was like, I don't want the little ship,
It was funny because we were in and out of character, having fun with the whole thing. And, and the director was just having a great time because we were just being wild. We were just really getting at each other like we were going to save the Post from the zombies. But it was a great time doing it. And the actual short film got screened there, and it's now going to be at the GI Film Festival down in San Diego. I believe it's May 19th, which is a Friday. So our film is going to be screening down there, which hopefully I'm going to get a chance to go down there if I can, if I'm not out of town. But we'll have a chance to connect. But once again, so this is the creative side of you. And so obviously you act, you write, you direct, you have a website with some of the stuff you directed. Tell us about what's your goals going forward on the creative side.
I'm leaving out something, you all, which is what I've been doing for the last since 2020. I'm a writer, and the UCLA has a creative writing workshop for veterans, and that's known as the Word Commandos to a lot of veteran writers, but it's a UCLA course that's being offered. I started that in 2018. And I wrote my first short story then I was in Lit Crawl that year and got to read that story. And the next year during the pandemic, 2020, it was requested that a piece I'd written, and I'd written it was maybe 300, 400 words. It was called He Went That Way. And I read that at Lit Crawl in 2020, inspired by what happened with George Floyd and everything during that time, that summer. And I got discovered by someone, Kurt Seaver from Mayday Magazine. He published He Went That Way. I've written 14, 15 stories. I think maybe 11 of them are published already. And I'm almost done with my collection. I've got 2 stories to go on my collection. So my books are almost done. And I'm also working on 3 screenplays right now. And I'm getting to act every week right now, which I'm really enjoying. So, you know, it's
and he's running 11 miles after the marathon, riding a bike 13 miles. Oh man, you know, do you write while you're riding the bike? That's impressive, man.
You know what? It comes to me right now. I have 10 pages due tomorrow. So I have 10 pages to turn in tomorrow. And what's going to happen is after this, I'm going to eat. And then I'm going to be writing all night long. And while I was riding the bike, it was coming to me, the outline and everything, you know, the pool is too, swimming.
So what you're saying is, so when this podcast ends, now you've kind of made me feel like I got to get busy and do some work. Thanks, man.
No, it's Sunday. It's Sunday. One of the things, and this is what I learned from Judge Mitchell, the reason why we set those the marathon goals, and the reason why we set goals like right now, there's the next big goal. I think there's going to be an ultra marathon in Joshua Tree, 37 miles. So we already know. I'm not saying now. I haven't been cleared to do that. My fiance is not clear. I will not be participating in that one. I have not been cleared. However, we are in negotiations.
That's the small print, right?
Right, the small print. So she said, look, you just did this, that, but there's a bike trip from San Francisco all the way to Los Angeles. We're in negotiations on my participation in that.
All right.
But having a goal. So I like to say, okay, I commit to you. Hey, John, I'm going to have 10 pages due. Hey, I'm going to run a marathon. And then I keep my word, you know, I have integrity with my word. So that's how I get things done. It's really just saying I'm going to do it and then sharing that with somebody else and then doing it. And the judge has helped me with that.
Well, I think that, you know, that's a great lesson as we kind of get to the end of the show is just, you know, one, setting that goal and making a commitment to someone, or a public commitment, so that, you know, you've told someone you're going to do it, and they're like, you know, now you got to live up to your word. And right. I think for a lot of us, that's the way to get things accomplished in life. Because if, you know, you can talk yourself out of anything if you don't have to. It's like, yeah, you make excuses for days, but once you've given your word to somebody else, now that's different. You know, because now, you know, it means more. And if you want to be that person, and you are, and I am, and others should, you know, that's what you need to be. Make that commitment to somebody else. And now you put in the work and you do it, you know, and you get to that goal. So that's pretty, you know, strong. What else anything else you would want to wrap up? Anything that people can support you? Obviously, you know, anything, messages that you would like to leave us at the end with this?
Well, first of all, gratitude. Thank you. I'm grateful for an opportunity to have this conversation, John, and to open up about some of these things that I don't share. If you ask me, I'll tell you about my experience. I didn't lead with that, like John was saying. When I met him, I didn't lead with that.
Oh, of course not. Not at all. Not at all.
But I did share. John shared with me. And what I identified in John right away was that John was able to identify and knew and surrounded himself with people who had accomplished a great deal and had overcome a lot of things in life. I mean, just phenomenally great people and examples all around him. And that's one of those takeaways I looked at as, okay, I'm going to make sure I'm doing that. So I'd say just having that observation, and I know that it sounds like a cliche, but I think who I surround myself with matters. And that's why I surround myself with people like John, you know, and that frequency attracts more people like ourselves, you know.
Well, Nicholas, thank you for those kind words, man. And, you know, but they are true, because, you know, when I started this show, I started it because I felt like I had to do something to give back more and find another way to reach people. And I say, I mean, one of the things I've been blessed with in life, is an abundance of great people in my life. And I've just been, everywhere I go, I've met and made friends with great people who live lives of overcoming, lives of service, lives of making a difference. And I've had all those people, and I went, it's like God's given me that blessing of those people. And so that's why my show came about, so that I could share those people's story, your story, and others, because that's how, people get inspired. It's how I got inspired when I was a dropout in the South Bronx. My goal was to survive. I didn't have these big goals, being a film producer, making movies. Are you kidding me? That, what was that, man? I had no idea what any of that was, right? That wasn't my dream. It was somehow God had a bigger plan. And part of it was the people that I met in my life, like yourself, and that I keep meeting, because I just get attracted to people like yourself who overcome, people who I would call overcomers. No matter what life throws at us, we find a way. It ain't easy. We find a way. We just do it and we get there. And so I saw that in you, and I just saw the energy. I mean, the other piece of it is people who are loving life, happy, and willing to share that with others. And you have that, man. So, brother, I was really appreciative to work with you. I had such a freaking blast with you, man. And it was fun. So I'm glad you took the time to be on my show. And so, I'm not going to run. I don't have to say I'm not going to run 37 miles, because I'm not.
I am gonna go. I'm gonna go to the gym, though. You inspire me.
All right.
I'm going to do some more resistance training.
All right. Well, I'm a 7-day in the gym kind of guy, but not a runner guy. But but we both find ways to create those goals for ourselves, both physically and for others. So I honor you, man, for what you're doing and continue to do. Anything I can do to support you, let me know. And then I'll give you the last words, and then I'll wrap up the show.
Just thank you. I have to say, Bella, Rumi, Alyssa, I love you all. Mother, I've got to give my mother a shout out. I love you too, Mother. And Dad, thank you for everything.
So yeah, man.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you for everything you do for the Skid Row Running Club. I don't thank Tracy enough, so I just want to say thank you to Tracy, because she has she's done a lot of organization and facilitating with Skid Row Running Club, and I hadn't gotten a chance to tell her thank you for all of her organization with the India and Maldives trip. So thank you, Tracy.
Well, thank you, brother. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate it, and I appreciate you. Look forward to seeing you next time at the Post, or maybe down in San Diego, man. And let's stay in touch. Have a great.
All right. Thank you, John.
All right. All right, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the show and today's message of overcoming, and Nicholas's life and service, both in the military and civilian life. I think he's got a powerful story with just so much that I learned from just listening to him. But how we sometimes realize what people go through that we don't see, and what struggles they're going through. So to have that kind of compassion and understanding, and reach out to people and be there for them, is a message that I think comes across powerfully in his story. So once again, thank you for watching Live Courageously podcast. Join us every Sunday at 2 p.m. Next week's guest is Dr. Trina, the CEO of the nonprofit Give an Hour, which provides mental health services to veterans and others. And come to meet some of the other great friends I have been blessed with. And I encourage you to choose to live courageously, make your life a masterpiece. And God bless you until next Sunday. And thank you for watching.